a serial entrepreneur, one of the smartest guys that I know, super sharp. Rob scaled a company from scratch. He scaled it to 40 team members, and the business that he built from scratch is a international company, and he ended up going from an idea right up to selling the business.
I've heard it said that entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere and non-entrepreneurs see obstacles everywhere. Well, I'm kind of the excessive opportunity guy. If you talk to my wife, she says, well, Rob sees opportunity everywhere. Don't be threatened by people that are better than you in key areas of your business. I mean, the genius of an entrepreneur is not to be the best at everything. It's to assemble a team of people who are the best in their own respective areas.
All right, welcome to the Mark Ferris Experience. We have Rob Stephenson here, a serial entrepreneur, one of the smartest guys that I know, super sharp. Rob scaled a company from scratch. He scaled it to 40 team members, and the business that he built from scratch is a international company, and he ended up going from an idea right up to selling the business. So he went full cycle in the business model and scaled it up to a multi-million-dollar business. So Rob, welcome to the show. Super excited for the conversation. Maybe you could start off with give us a little bit of your backstory and what inspired you to start your own business.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Mark. Excited to be here. Always love chatting with you, so happy to continue this conversation. Yeah, I come from a family, at least on my dad's side, of a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, risk takers. I like to joke that I'm 1/4 American because my grandma was from Pennsylvania, so that's probably where some of the entrepreneurial drive comes from. But yeah, I just like to do things with excellence and do things very well. And I'm a big opportunity guy. I see opportunity everywhere. And I've worked for lots of people and really enjoyed those jobs. But you know, there was a fire in my belly of wanting to do my own thing. So that's how I got into it.
Awesome. And so take us back to the beginning, Rob, of this, that early stage. Okay, so you had an idea, you had this fire in your belly. And so how did you get started? And what do you think those key points were that really helped you get through that idea to actually implement, to know that you actually have a business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I actually started off doing consulting engineering. So my background is mechanical engineering. I did my degree at University of Waterloo in Canada here. And I knew when I was in 6th grade that I wanted to go into engineering, which sounds crazy, but I had the advantage of an older friend who was maybe 7 or 8 years ahead of me, who told me what engineering was, and he actually went to University of Waterloo as well. So I set my academic sights on that, but I loved working with my hands and designing, building things when I was a kid. Classic geek growing up, but I figured engineering was the best track towards that. And so did my degree and then graduated in 1995. And by 1997, I had started my own business. And simply because I knew that, to get the most out of my career, I would probably be the happiest with my own enterprise. So when my friends were saying, why are you starting your own business? Why don't you just work for somebody? I was like, yeah, I don't mind that, but I've got some bigger dreams, bigger vision of where we could take things. So started off doing consulting engineering in product design and manufacturing. And that turned out to be a very good area to get training and experience in to really launch what became our own product that became an international success. But it started with consulting, and then from that I learned opportunities and saw openings in the market of where we could address a need.
Okay, so what I got from that, so you had this fire in your belly. So there was like a strong desire, which is that's table stakes. And when you get into a business, you need that fire in your belly because, Elon Musk is so true what he said. And entrepreneurs can understand this statement, is that starting a business is like staring into the abyss, chewing on glass.
Yep.
And you probably remember that early struggle days, right? It's tough. So and then you see opportunity everywhere, and you saw an opening in the market. So Can can you talk a little bit about that, Rob? That, a lot of people just like, I want to start a business, and they just start with kind of the first thing that comes along. That that filtering mechanism, I think that is so important when you look at a business. What are some things that when you're filtering a business to get into, what are some of those key decision, we'll say, filters that you're filtering through before saying I'm going to start, rather than, oh, this, franchise came along, this opportunities has popped up, and you want to start. So what should an entrepreneur look at when they're filtering through which business to get into?
Yeah, excellent question. You know, the first thing that was going through my head, and I recommend this for all entrepreneurs, is you really got to decide whether the product or service that you're proposing to offer, is there actually a demand for it? Does the market want this, or is it just some pet idea of your own that you think would fly, but there is really no demand for it? I mean, maybe a classic example of that, maybe an inventor comes up with an idea that he's so attached to, like his baby, but the market isn't asking for it. I actually had an idea back when I was in high school for a product that it was pretty cool at the time, but I don't think the market actually wanted it, and glad we didn't actually proceed and develop it. So that'll be the first thing, is understand where the market wants that. And secondly is, can you actually make and sell it for a profit? Because if you can't, you got no business case. And third thing is can you scale it? Because if it's going to be hard to scale, you may have a job type business, but not a business that can really grow and flourish and make you a good profit. So those are some of the three things that I asked myself, and I turned down a lot of different opportunities. Like I alluded to before, I've heard it said that entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere and non-entrepreneurs see obstacles everywhere. Well, I'm kind of the excessive opportunity guy. If you talk to my wife, she says, well, Rob sees opportunity everywhere. The challenge is, how do you focus and narrow it down to the best ideas to pursue? So yeah, lots of ideas. Fortunately, the one we ended up running with in the end was successful, but those are the three main criteria that I would recommend that entrepreneurs look at as they're deciding what to pursue.
And tell us about the business that you ended up getting into. So the business, and then maybe you could share like a misconception or a myth about that
Yeah,
industry.
so I mentioned that I got into consulting engineering. Most of that was involved in the manufacturing industry, particularly the automotive manufacturing. Located here in Southern Ontario, we've got a very large part of our economy in the automotive business, and so particularly industrial automation was my background. And but I was fortunate enough when I relaunched the business in 2009 to get an opportunity from a former VP of Ops that had hired me to come in and do some consulting work in the car wash manufacturing business, or car wash equipment manufacturing. So that was a neat opportunity to look at a completely different business and apply the things I learned in the automation background to this new industry. Getting involved in a whole new field gave me all kinds of ideas were flooding in, and the idea that we actually came up with for our own product, again drawing from all the skills and experience I'd gained in the automation background, was a belt conveyor system for moving cars through car washes. Car washes have really grown from mom and pop operations over the last few years into full-scale, multi-site, private equity owned, typically, operations that are in multiple states. And one of the key things that factors whether these businesses succeed is throughput and reliability, durability, customer experience. I never even had the idea, but through this opportunity for some consulting work in the car wash field, we actually got a call from some of the folks at Petro-Canada, and they said, "Hey, Rob, we've had some exposure to some of your consulting engineering work, and we'd love you to come and help redesign a belt conveyor that's giving us problems." So at that point, some light bulbs went on in my head, and I figured, okay, well, I'm really convinced that the customers for car washes would really much prefer the experience going through a car wash on a flat belt versus having to line your wheels up on what they call a chain conveyor. This is technology from the
Yeah.
60s, and a lot of people have an aversion to going into conveyorized car washes for the fear of jumping the rail,
Mm.
creating a scene, damaging rims and tires, that kind of thing. And at the time when I got involved in this, belt conveyors had a really bad reputation for reliability. And so my idea was like, well, I
Mm.
know the customers greatly prefer it. If we can address the reliability issues, I think we have a winner. And that's how we kind of got going. It wasn't even my idea, but I saw an opportunity. I knew a solution that if we put our engineering smarts together with my team, we could address it.
Love that. So again, you saw that opportunity. Can you talk a little bit more, if you were to summarize it for just say the average entrepreneur out there? You had mentioned throughput. So can you talk a little bit about what throughput is, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, that whole concept? We've implemented some of that in our real estate brokerage and the real estate investment firm that we have as well in the any sort of automotive.
Yeah.
The whole Toyota way, that whole concept. Can you like summarize it as like what is that and how can like entrepreneurs in general take advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, Toyota is probably one of the best companies, examples in the world for how they've implemented lean manufacturing and pulling value through organizations, getting rid of waste and focusing on extremely high quality. Actually, some of the consulting work I did was surrounding lean manufacturing systems, Six Sigma and whatnot. And we really drew upon that, the principles when we were designing our belt conveyor product. Putting the customer first and foremost in everything we did, and just trying to get rid of waste everywhere we could. But yeah, I'm really thankful for that experience because I think, it may have been harder to, be as successful in a very competitive market as we did. But yeah, a lot of companies are really taking that very seriously, and it's excellent principles to be employing in every area of your business. Driving out waste, constantly focus on what the customer really wants, not what we think they want, right? And pulling that through
Mm,
every area of your company.
love that. Yeah, there's so much waste. And, if you looked at, say, the government for being a business, would you say that they would pass or fail the
Fail miserably, right?
Oh, yeah. And this is where as an entrepreneur we see opportunity and we also see waste out there and I don't know about you, Rob, but it really bothers me if I see something. I mean, it starts with the customer, but when you just see waste there overall, especially coming from the automotive, that would probably hit you a lot harder than, others out there. So good. Very cool. And now, what would you say would be how do you make decisions on a day to day? I mean, what are some key values or principles? We make thousands of decisions as a business owner on an ongoing basis, right? And so what kind of filters do you filter your decision making on a day to day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of my decisions are based on mutual wins. We've talked about this in the past, Mark. I mean, business is not just about yourself. It's about others, right? And how you relate to others and how you can win together. So we've talked about win-win, not lose-win. I always try to make decisions on how are we going to win? How's our customers going to win? How's our suppliers going to win? How's our employees going to win? And it's a tight rope to walk sometimes, but how do you make sure that everyone wins together? I mean, it maybe sounds cliche, but really that is the foundation for long-term success. A lot of it boils down to integrity, making decisions that are right. I remember in kindergarten, maybe I'm not sure if this is still taught anymore, but the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have done unto you. It's pretty basic. If you follow that in business, sometimes that's rare because sometimes people will do things that benefit themselves at the expense of another. But the more you can apply that rule to kind of hold others' interests as high as your own, that tends to go well for you in business long term, right? People respect that. So integrity is a major component of doing the right thing that you're convicted on any particular issue for the long game, right? That's a major thing that I always tried to bring to our business on a daily basis.
I love this. You highlighted a foundational truth for any sort of business success, entrepreneur success, is if you focus on building a reputation of, you had said, integrity. If you just do the right things on an ongoing basis and not looking at just the dollar, but what is the right thing to do here, the money will come as a byproduct. But the most important thing we have as entrepreneurs is our reputation, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, it's incredible. I remember sharing a quick little story with you when we were speaking a few months back, but when we were first breaking into the U.S. market with our belt conveyor product, I remember we did a trade show in Nashville in 2016, but we were nobodies. Like, who are these guys from Canada selling this new product? Like, what are they all about, right? So we had no reputation, good, bad, or otherwise. But I remember we managed to get 4 sales in our first year in the U.S. market, which I was ecstatic about. I mean, these were decent sized projects, probably 100,000, 150,000 US dollars for each of these systems. So they weren't just a small purchase. But I remember thinking, you know what? We've been blessed with 4 sales of these products, and I had to move from more of a CEO mentality to a project management mentality, which fortunately I was able to draw from my automotive manufacturing experience. But I endeavored to make sure every little detail regarding those 4 sales were done with excellence, excellent communication, integrity, on time or early, better quality than what they expected. Because I knew that if we did all those things very well, that the story about these Canadians would spread through the industry, and that we would have natural organic sales. On the other hand, if we didn't deliver on every detail and we had a bad reputation, we could spend all the money we wanted on advertising, and it would be a flop. So, reputation is extremely important, and being very attentive to those details can make or break you, as you're growing your business.
Love that. Yeah, starting strong and building that reputation from ground floor, really good. What would you say? So people look at you and say you made the NHL a business, starting an idea, building it. Obviously there was a lot of great people that helped you do it, but it was an idea that you formed and you went full cycle on. And so what would be we'll say some regular habits or routines that helped you boost your productivity or maybe just overall well-being as you were growing and scaling this company?
Yeah, and this is so my main thing, I would think, main habit is attracting and building into high quality people and trusting them with executing the mission that we're on. And this wasn't always easy for me. Not that I'm not a trusting person, but I kind of grew up with a very hands-on tradesman father, and he was amazing at teaching me all kinds of amazing practical skills related to, mechanics and repairing things, inventing things, kind of homespun engineering, that kind of thing. He wasn't an engineer, but he should have been. But because of that, I kind of grew up with a set of values that, doing everything myself was the top priority, because that's the way he was, right? He had a hard time. He had a business, but it was 2 people, himself and one other guy that stuck with him over the years. Actually, similar background to you, Mark. He was heavy equipment and excavating, grading, and machinery, that kind of thing. So I grew up driving backhoes when I was 9, that kind of thing. But from that, I developed a sense of I got to be hands-on, right? That can be good when you're getting the business off the ground, but it can be an impediment as you're trying to grow a team and trust others to execute your vision and not try to do everything yourself. So I really had to discipline myself and learn to, not try to do everything. Get good people that can do maybe 80% of the job that I would do, and trust them. And yeah, they're gonna make mistakes, but grow a team of good people that are the right people in the right seat. And so that was something that I really had to discipline myself on and grow and mature as an entrepreneur. But it was a really neat feeling when you get a really neat team assembled and you've got the wind in your sails because you're all firing on all cylinders. You're all going together to execute that vision, right? So that was a key thing for me, and I had to learn it as I grew, but it paid off.
Love that. And that's one of the top things I found for myself as well. When I started selling real estate in 2007, I became the operator and I loved doing it. But then I realized the business really needed me to step away and play the CEO role. And I remember going through that shift, and there were these feelings that only I could do it. Right. And so I realized for me, it was more of a pride ego thing saying that only I can do it. And I realized it was more of a narcissistic viewpoint that if only you can do it, that means nobody else. It means that
Right.
you think you're better than anyone else. And so this is like a mental kind of conversation I was having. I realized the business needed me to shift out of sales into the CEO role. And then I needed to have somebody there that was a rock star. Now, the key that I found was exactly what you'd said there, attracting high quality people. And so I found as we started scaling up, the more talent that I had, the better. And as you start getting higher up, you realize that the leaders you hire, for me anyways, was like a key point. And so this is where, for me, I realized candor was a really important part for people,
Yeah.
that especially the leaders, candor, somebody that I could be really
Yeah.
proud of when I was talking about them, and then
Yeah.
somebody that was highly competitive, that just hated to lose. So like those three things is like in the leaders that I found, the more I could find people like that, the more I could do the role
Yeah.
that the business needed me to do. And then we've continued on, and even in our real estate investment firm now, to take those principles, but implementing them sooner, where it doesn't need like a full decade in order to grow. You can grow a lot faster by getting the right people on sooner.
Yeah, and I learned that don't be threatened by people that are better than you in key areas of your business. I mean, the genius of an entrepreneur is not to be the best at everything. It's to assemble a team of people who are the best in their own respective areas, right? Like I remember, and this hits close to home as an engineer. I thought, I'm a pretty good engineer, whatever, and come up with some pretty good ideas and do good design work, whatever. But being willing to go out and recruiting engineers that were smarter than me, more genius than me, more clever than me, but realizing, hey, this is key for this team. I need to be okay with that, and I'll focus on maybe what they're not as good on, maybe seeing the opportunity and growing the team, and maybe the sales side or whatever, right? So that's something I always recommend entrepreneurs: never feel threatened by people who are better than you in the key areas. Your genius is to assemble that team, set the vision, and get that plan executed.
Love that. I heard one business owner say his goal was to be the stupidest in the room.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that because that implies humility, and team members love to see transparency and humility in their leadership, not a know-it-all, right? Always being willing to learn, to grow, to improve, a constant improvement mentality, which goes back to what that we're talking about for Lean and Six Sigma and Toyota, right? That's a mentality that implies humility and a constant improvement state of mind.
Okay. How about a major failure or a challenge that you faced as you were growing and scaling, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, probably lots of failures, but probably the biggest one I think kind of ties into that team building is probably being too quick to put people in key seats without proper vetting. When you're trying to get something off the ground, every entrepreneur can sympathize with this, but you desperately try to get somebody into a seat, and anybody who comes along with you think that might fit the bill, you say, okay, just we gotta get them right away, right? But there can be some bad fallout from that if you're not careful. I've heard it said, I'm not sure if it was Dave Ramsey who said this or wherever, but I've heard hire hard, lead easy, right? And I think many times as a young entrepreneur, I did the exact opposite. Hired easy and then had up having to lead in a hard way, right? Because it was the wrong people, or maybe the right people in the wrong seat, right? So my fault for allowing them to be in the wrong seat, or not doing proper, background checks, looking at their track record, whatnot. So, this is something that you never fully arrive. You always can make some mistakes, but generally speaking, that's probably where I could have grown faster or had less headaches, heartaches, whatever, by being a bit more careful in the hiring selection process.
Is there anything, I love that, hire, hard, lead, easy. Oh, that's a good nugget there.
Yeah, not mine. Again, I'm quoting somebody. I think it was Dave Ramsey or one of his companies, but I've never forgot it. So
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think anything we learn, everybody is like
yeah,
recycling same information. So, it's just
yeah,
different kind of spins on it and said in
yeah.
different ways and whatnot. But I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Is there anything that you've implemented as you've become more seasoned as a entrepreneur when you are, say, interviewing before, as
Mhm.
part of that hire hard process? Is there anything that maybe you've implemented that was like super helpful for you that our listeners could pick up on?
Yeah, I think when you're interviewing prospective team members, I've learned over the years you really got to try to cut through the facade of a typical interview where people tend to go into the interview mode and just tell you the things that you want to hear. You got to try to find a way of getting people off kilter a little bit. I'm not talking about stressing them out, but just try to get them to find out the real people there. And I kind of learned this skill from a VP of mine who he actually hired me as in that automation industry that I was mentioning before, and then I was able to return the favor and bring him on as our corporate VP of operations. A brilliant guy, and he had an amazing way of kind of destabilizing people in a good way to make people feel comfortable and get them to let their guard down and really let their true colors shine through. Asking roundabout, non-direct questions, and giving them examples. So I found that if you can do that and cut through some of the stage aspect of interviewing, it really can shed a lot of light on what you're about to get if you bring them on. So because that's really what you want. You're trying to assess fit, and if it's not a good fit, it's not fair to either to go down that path if you can identify things early on. So that really helped me when I started to figure out some of those approaches. And in addition to that, I think really looking at background. I mean, Mark, you've talked about the fruit in people's lives, right? So really looking for consistency. I mean, it's hard for leopard to change the spots. We've heard that. But if you can see a consistent pattern in people that would be a good fit for your business, I think it's really important to study that very carefully. And it applies to all relationships in life, particularly somebody you're letting into your organization. So those are some things I've learned over the years that have really benefited us.
Love that. And when you realize what a bad hire costs you, I've heard one study where it's like if you're hiring somebody for in that 100 to 150 senior position, a bad hire can actually be like 1.5 million. After they're there for 6 months, they do a bunch of damage. You got to pay them severance. And so you realize that, a few hours ahead of time is like some of the best time that you can invest. It's just, you had mentioned it, it's easy to just fill a seat. And that was like, it's so smart to understand the psychology of where you're mentally at. You need somebody in the seat. They're there. You connect like, we'll just say that fireworks are happening. You lock eyes at each other and it's like, yeah, this is all going to be perfect. And then you throw them in. You realize that beginning stage is really important and such a good investment. And that goes back to your statement that you had said, hire hard, lead easy. I love that. Uh, just a couple quick things that for you listeners that have helped us is there's a book called Who by Jeff Smart, and then there's another one called Top Grading that's been really helpful for us. And another thing that we've implemented in our businesses is a job simulation to actually allow the whoever it is that you're bringing on to actually do the role, and then you can watch them. That's hard for them to fluff the the job simulation when they're actually doing it. They can't right, Rob? Sometimes you're in an
Yep.
interview and they're telling you exactly what you want to
Yeah,
hear,
absolutely. That's a great idea,
right?
actually.
Yeah. So very good. Well, what, Rob, growing it, the amount of stress that as a business owner to take it from an idea to, where you built it, international company, starting in Barrie
Yep.
and in Ontario, taking it all through Canada and the United States. You're right across, built this right across the world, Australia, international company. There's a lot of stress on you as a business owner and have been in the past. What helps you overcome and deal with stress, and like what keeps you going?
Yeah, great question. I guess some of it's innate. I don't know. Even in the craziest, most stressful points of our business, I've never had any problem sleeping at night, which I guess is a tremendous blessing because I've heard some people just, worry and insomnia, stress and insomnia are major factors. I don't know. I guess it's just something that I don't. I guess I'm naturally a risk taker, and I don't tend to worry about a lot of things. It's funny. My parents both describe themselves as very non-confident people, but they were smart enough to endeavor to raise their four kids to be confident people, and all myself and my three siblings are all very confident. So hats off to my parents. But so some of it's innate, but the other part of it is a mindset thing. I think I tend to be a very positive person, or I try to be, and I think, look, we're going to face problems all through life, in business, challenges. And instead of trying to get down in the dumps or stressed to the max about them, I see them as, hey, how can we turn this into an opportunity? I'll give you a quick example of just one that just comes to mind. This is not maybe the biggest valley or stress we went through, but a few years back, we, as a manufacturing business in Canada, were severely affected by the Trump steel tariffs and buying a lot of steel, particularly stainless steel that comes out of the U.S. mills. It almost erased all our profits and almost caused us to go to business. So, instead of getting down the dumps and, freaking out, it's like, hey, what are we going to do to make this into an opportunity? So we started innovating and developing other materials that end up being a huge thing for us. That had we not gone through that stress, that valley of in business, we never would have come up with them, right? So a lot of it is just mindset, and I think we live in Canada, North America, and U.S. I mean, we're living in one of the best countries in the world to do business, and there's so much opportunity, so much systems that can support us when times get tough. We just got to have a different perspective and do a pivot when challenges arise. So those kind of things have, I guess, helped me through the stressors of running a business. And then the other major thing is I got an amazing wife who comes from a business background as well. I know you do too, Mark, and Joanna really understands what you guys are going through, and you guys are a great team. I don't think I could have done what we did without my wife Twyla's, wise and loving involvement. So having a great partner beside you is huge when you're dealing with these stresses. So those are, I guess, three areas that have helped us through the valley of the shadow of death, if you want to call it.
Oh man, you just hit on a couple like, oh, it's so good. So the mindset thing is something that I found to be a very consistent theme with entrepreneurs on how they see things. It's more of a glass half full versus half empty. You said it well. How can we make this a new opportunity? How can we? Where's the opportunity in this? Is the filter versus, oh my goodness, like this? We have a problem. It's like there's not a problem. There's an opportunity. And so that is such an important mindset overall because there's constantly challenges that come up in business. And if you're constantly on this like freaking out stage, it's just if as a leader, people are looking to you to be that cool, calm, collective voice and not being the person freaking out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's just the way that maybe we're educated or just culturally, but I find a lot of times we think, well, I'm here at point A and I've got to get to point B in this business. And if I just plan it perfectly, and a lot of times you learn this as a professional, right? These are the steps you do, whether it's you're engineering a solution to a design, whatever. You just follow these steps and you'll get a good result. But I find that, a lot of times business is not just A to B. You're going to have to do maybe several other points to get there, right? And I call that, the pivot, right? So when something comes in to interrupt that plan of getting to A to B, you got to be totally open to making adjustments on the fly. And while you're doing that, looking for those opportunities that can make things even better than just going straight from A to B, right? So that's something that I've had to learn over the years, and I like to be positive about things and not see impediments as gonna is terrible, and see them as opportunities, right? So being positive, glass half full, looking for opportunities is very, very important as an entrepreneur. And I would say if you're not a positive person and not willing to pivot and adjust, and you're thinking of going to business for yourself, I would think twice until you get to that point of positivity and creative problem solving, solutions mindset versus problems mindset.
Love that. Yeah. And even seeing these problems as, or we'll call them challenges or opportunities, as like real feedback from the marketplace that perhaps you need to change your plan.
Absolutely, yeah. Being nimble and being able to adjust. Again, going back to humility, you might think you have the best idea, the best strategy, and the best marketing. You're going to roll it out, but you might find that no one wants this, or they're not interested in it. But you have to have the ability to rejig and say, well, let's learn what the customer really wants and adjust accordingly, right? You have to be open to that, right?
Love that. Yeah. And you brought up some, I mean, that ties in really well as curiosity. Entrepreneurs, like you got to have that curiosity there. Like everything you've been saying, it's like, what can I learn from that? That's a real trait that I've seen in successful entrepreneurs, is they're constantly asking questions coming from a place of, how can we learn from this so it doesn't happen again, versus who did it, I'm going to hammer them, right?
That's right. Absolutely. That's all part of continual learning, right? That should be a mindset for all of us. You never stop learning. You never arrive fully. You're constantly, maintaining an attitude of teachability, right from the top down. That affects all areas of your business. If you model teachability to your team, everyone will likely follow the leader in that regard, and have hopefully a similar approach to solving problems.
100%. Yeah, the company mirrors the leader, right? So you set the tone. Is it just like with your kids? It's like, some parents is like, do as I say, not as I do. It's like everybody's just watches what you do, and and that's, as a leader, it's that's why it's tough to be a leader, because you're always on. For me, it's like I'm always, when I show up at the office, I make sure that I always dress professional, because professionalism is what we want to exude. And if I start wearing shorts and a t-shirt, the team members are all going to mimic that, right? It's like, it's okay for the leader. It's like, it's okay for me. So that's so great insight there, Rob. Thank you for that. And you had mentioned, before we move on, I don't want to just gloss over how important it is to have a supporting spouse. This is actually one of the things in our brokerage business. We actually interview the final interview with the agent before we bring them on is actually we bring their spouse in. And so it gives them an opportunity to sit to ask any questions. And we found that final interview, not only they appreciated it, but it gave us some insight as to, are they really supporting in this role? Because it's tough. I mean, starting any business as you go, it's like you're working late, you're working evenings and weekends. So what you had mentioned there about Twyla supporting you through that, I know with Joanna, there's no way I would have been able to build these, two different companies, the brokerage and then the real estate investment firm, without that support or that sounding board when you get beat up at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not just support wherever you're doing. It's asking hard questions and holding you accountable to tease out the best ideas and avoid some of the weak ones. I mean, I probably would have chased a whole bunch of bad ideas had it not been for Twyla to say, I think you should stay away from those and focus on this one. But having that wisdom there, and just accountability is huge, because good partners, just like a business partner or part of your senior management team that you've empowered to be fully transparent with you, they are invaluable because they can keep you out of a lot of danger, right? You never want to surround yourself with yes people. That's a recipe for disaster. You want people that are going to speak the truth to you, and help you avoid things that could be bad endeavors, put it that way.
So good. Yeah, somebody that can call you on your BS, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, fostering that environment is critical, right? Any strong team, I think, depends on that. I mean, it's the opposite of having a dictator type thing where no one will challenge dear leader for fear of reprisal. I mean, you want the honest input because everyone's going to see things differently, and there's a collective wisdom there, like just like a board brings that to an operation team, and can make the best decisions collectively, right? So ultimately, the leader, the CEO, in many cases, has to make a call, and you can't incorporate every single person's advice, especially if there's different opinions. But you need to consult and learn, and to hold in high esteem the valuable wisdom and insights that are being given to you at that by the team. So
Advice, 100%. Having your spouse on the same page as you in support of. So I'd like to shift a little bit. So as an entrepreneur, it's wonderful for an income generator. So it's a great way to increase your income by providing value to the marketplace. You have all this income coming in. What advice would you give an entrepreneur that's starting to make a lot of income on, we'll just call it overall investing advice, some general investing advice and how to build their wealth faster? What insight or advice would you give an entrepreneur as they're starting to make more income?
Definite ideas on that, and just this is kind of what we did. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I think there is some wisdom in that in this approach. So when we started getting some success early on with some larger clients who kind of really loved what we were doing with our product, and we're starting to make some profits and whatnot. I mean, there is a strong temptation. You take a lot of risks as a business owner, and you work tons of hours, and you're slugging it out. You kind of want to see some fruit or some rewards for all the sacrifice. And there's probably a strong temptation to kind of treat yourself on some things, maybe some big purchases, whatever. For me, let's say it was a boat or something like that. But we kind of resisted the urge to do that because we thought, you know what, we believe in our team and we believe in what we're doing. Why don't we just forego some of those nice things that we would love and just reinvest those profits back into our own business because we think we can have the best return on that investment, right? So that's kind of what we did. It's a bit of a sowing and reaping principle, and delayed gratification kind of thing, deferring some nice things that we're not opposed to, but just pushing them down the line a bit further because we think there's a huge opportunity here that we could realize if we were to reinvest some of those profits. So that's kind of what we did. So I would encourage young entrepreneurs to be very disciplined, and it's very easy to spend money, especially if you like I say, you're working hard and you want to demonstrate to others that you've arrived, kind of thing. I would say believe in yourself, reinvest, try to stay out of debt if you can avoid debt, bad debt particularly, consumer debt. Then try and do that and reinvest in yourself, and it's going to help you scale faster and rely less on banks or other shareholders. We were able to scale our business with just Twyla and I as the owners. We didn't have to bring other partners in, which was nice because when you go to if you have a liquidity event and you sell your business, then you just get more of the rewards kind of thing. So that'd be my advice: is to take a disciplined approach and not maybe go after the flashy things. Defer it till later if you need that kind of stuff. But that was just our approach. It's definitely a conservative approach, but it worked out for us, and we're happy we did that.
Yeah, no, that's real wisdom there. The discipline,
Yeah.
being disciplined, right, and pushing, the we'll just say the lifestyle down the road
Yeah.
while you're scaling and building. It creates a compounding effect. So I think that's really smart. So what are you excited about now, Rob, moving forward? So you've exited your business. What are you excited about moving forward?
Well, I guess I'm technically retired, but my wife knows that's only temporary. We've got 4 boys that's still living under our roof at home here. The oldest is 19, the youngest is 12. So as you can imagine, there's a ton of activity here with school, sports, all the things that, 3 of them are teenagers, by the way. So it's a busy household, but I mean, one of the deciding factors of selling our business, we weren't trying to sell the business, but we were approached for acquisition and end up following through on that. But one of the key things that we realized is, hey, there's a tremendous opportunity to not just spend more time with our kids at this stage in life, but to intentionally mentor them and model a lot of the business lessons that we're fortunate enough to learn over the years. Twa and I weren't particularly fond of trying to push a family business onto our kids because maybe they just don't have the aptitude or the interest or the abilities to run it. We'd rather teach them business principles and let them follow their own passions of what they're really fired up about. So we saw a unique opportunity, in selling our business to be able to mentor and model and come alongside our kids as we teach them, right? So that's what I'm really excited about right now. I'm been basically doing that for last year or so. And it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Love spending time with the kids and teaching tons of stuff. And so yeah, and as the kids leave home, maybe we'll start something else. All kinds of ideas that could be pursued. But yeah, it's just when you get into a point where you don't have to work, you choose to work on your own terms, and do what you want. It's a really neat feeling. It's a lot of fun. I'm probably busier now than I was when I was running the business because I relied more on my team, but I can't subcontract mentoring and parenting to others, and I love to do it. That's something really hands-on that I want to keep doing. Spending time with my boys and my wife as we enjoy each other. So
Love that. And what a gift for your boys. They got we'll call them a big show business dad that is actually teaching them and advising and mentoring them. And so what a gift for them. And I see, after, meeting you and your family, you've been doing a phenomenal job on that. And then the financial freedom, you're working because you want to, whatever it is that you're doing now, you're doing it because you want to, not because, say work, you don't have to. And I think that's where it brings us to a fundamental goal of a lot of entrepreneurs is that financial freedom and the time freedom as well. And so you've been able to accomplish both. So, well done, Rob. You've done a really great job. So just to wrap up here, I have
Sure.
3 quick questions in rapid fire, and then we'll wrap up because Rob, I could talk to you for hours.
like that.
For hours. But for the sake of your time, and I appreciate it, you coming on. I got 3 last questions,
Sure.
rapid fire, and then we'll close it out. So, first one: what book has had the biggest impact on building your business or wealth creation for you?
That's pretty easy. It's called the EMyth. It's a classic business book. I had a really good friend of mine that just basically was relentless in getting me to read that book. He says, "Rob, you got to read that book." And he probably asked me 25 times because you're in the fire, you're way too busy to read. And finally, one summer vacation, I had a 2-week period, went out to bookstore, grabbed it. But that changed my whole mentality. And the whole thesis of that book is work on your business, not in your business. And that became a whole process for me to extract myself from a lot of the things I should not be doing, and instead work on the overall strategy, the vision side, and not all the operational execution side. So it was transformational for me. I highly recommend it for any would-be entrepreneur.
Wonderful. Yeah. That's Michael Gerber, the EMyth, for all your listeners. It's one of like the top 3 that you have to read as a business. So that's awesome. Rob, how would others describe you in 3 words?
My wife has called me the pivot master. Is that 3? So yeah, just being able to quickly pivot when things don't go as planned, like we talked about, constantly adjusting, rejigging. My dad modeled that for me, and I've really tried to work at that skill through my career.
The pivot master. Yeah, no, you got it. That's 3. All right, and final question here: what advice would you give your younger self?
I would, build my team earlier. Trusting people more, getting the right people in the right seats earlier in my career, rather than try to do everything myself. Eventually, learned that and developed that. But the earlier the better, right? The more you can, or the earlier you can identify good high quality people to join your team and get them in the right seat and empower them to execute your vision, the faster you're going to scale your business. So that was, for me, a big learning, and sooner the better as an entrepreneur to do that.
Awesome. Such wisdom. Very cool. Well, Rob, I appreciate you a lot for coming on. I know you're a super busy guy, and this is such great nuggets. There's so many key, even one-liners here that you were able to drop. So I appreciate you. Want to encourage everybody, come on our next show, listen up. We're talking with successful entrepreneurs on how to build business and scale their wealth.
Thanks,
Until
Mark.
next time, we'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye.